How are you
Hello.
today? Fantastic. Thanks. Must tell those that are watching us Happy Valentine's Day today, I guess. So I
Happy
hope you're all
Valentine's
having
Day.
a hope you're all having a lovely day. And so we're going to talk about all things love today, and we're going to talk about how much you love estate and succession planning, and going on the estate and succession planning journey. So Michelle, this is right up your alley, and
Yep.
what are your thoughts? I think we've written down a few topics here, but one of the first things is really how do people get started? I guess is your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I think this is the sort of topic that people are very quick to procrastinate on because, firstly, you don't want to think about dying. But also there seem to be other pressing things in your life that you need to focus on. So it's really easy, I find, for people to push it aside and not deal with it. But I would encourage everyone to deal with it. And how to do that is by just contacting us or you to have a chat about what your options are.
Yeah, absolutely. Procrastination, you're absolutely right. Let me think about that for a minute, though. So we'll see what. Sorry, that was my in joke for the afternoon.
Very funny. I laughed.
No, procrastination really is one of the things because, Michelle, what I think happens is people see this as too big an object. They kind of think, wow, if I have to do my estate planning, I'll have to go and see a lawyer. I'll have to get all my tax returns together. I'll have to do a list of all my assets and liabilities. I'll have to maybe talk to the kids, or I'll have to speak to the financial planner, the accountant, the share broker, and all that sort of stuff. And they sort of go through in their mind. They've got this list of 100 things they need to do to get their estate planning done. And whenever that happens, it just looks like this big sort of wiry mess of stuff that they've got to do. So they do nothing. So it is one of the important parts of the whole process to make sure that we find ways to encourage people to get something done. And if I may say so, Michelle, what I find is to encourage people to get this done, you've actually got to scare the bejesus. Yeah. We'll say that. People actually have to be emotionally attached to being scared or being anxious about what will happen if they don't do it. You would know that people will ring you up before they go on a holiday and they say, "Oh, Michelle, I'm going away, I'm going overseas, and I think the plane's, everyone thinks the plane's going to crash for some reason, and so they say, well, we'd better go and get our estate planning done." Is that kind of where people come to when they talk to you? Is it sort of because of some random thing, or because Harry up the street died?
Yeah, Harry up the street died. We're about to go on holidays, about to go in for some life-changing surgery, all that sort of stuff. A bad diagnosis, someone in the family with one of those things, and that's typically when we see people. And then it's often a bit close to the time where you need a bit more time to spend to talk with them through the whole process. So, yeah.
One thing I learned years ago, Michelle, was that death to most people comes as a surprise. It's sorry, I know I'm being flippant about it, but it's that sort of topic you sometimes need to be. But I mean, people don't sit there and go, "Okay, I'm going to die tomorrow." They tragedies happen, bad things happen, accidents and all that sort of stuff. And it's not that people get time to say, "Oh, I've got 5 days, so I'll on day 3 I'm going to get my estate and succession planning done." And I think that the greatest thing we can do is actually, I call it emotionally emotionally. There's a word for it, and I've lost it now. But actually, getting people emotionally involved or emotionally scared that they need to do something. And when people read about car accidents, or someone in the family passed away, or somebody's been diagnosed, that's what tends to motivate them. So, yeah, how do they start their estate and succession planning journey? Obviously, they talk to you, they talk to us, and really, what I'd like to think we do from both our points of view, Michelle, is to simplify what seems to be absolute traumatic potential for for clients and what makes them procrastinate, and that is that the issue is too big. And that was one of the reasons, I think you've seen our 9-step process we use. I'm a great believer in breaking down this whole process into 9 steps. So each one's like a bite-sized chunk. You're just doing a little bit at a time. And the other thing too, and I think this is important that people are watching this understands, is that when you delegate your estate and succession planning to someone like, your team or us, who will end up using you anyway, is you're actually delegating it all. Really, we like to think we have 2 or 3 meetings with clients. They're sitting down, they're probably investing 2 or 3 hours, and all the rest of it gets done by mainly you guys, contacting their accountants and everybody else to the financial planners to get all the details. So the clients don't have to do that. By using us, they're getting that done, aren't they?
Yeah. And at almost every single meeting, the first meeting I have with my clients, they always say at the end, "Oh, that was so simple. Oh, that was so easy. Oh, I didn't realize it would be so easy." It's just they've built it up into this terrible, difficult thing, and we can just ease your mind straight away. Give us an hour.
Invest 1 hour and it'll all get sorted. That's right.
Yeah.
Okay. Which probably leads in, and this is your second step. So do you want to go through that? The second thing that people need to think about before starting the journey?
Yeah. So we would encourage people to think about a few things before they meet with us for the first time. So you don't have to have everything locked down. I'm giving this person this thing. Just concepts are good at this stage. What concerns you? Do you have worries about one of your children or about their future and how you might need to protect their inheritance? What do you want to achieve? Do you want to have some very straightforward equal distribution between your children, or do you want to have something a little bit more bespoke to deal with your particular circumstances? It's probably often we deal with trusts now in estate planning, so it's good if people have some idea about what a trust is and who plays what role in a trust, so we can build on that as we talk through with people what their estate planning is. And also really important is to talk about what they want to do with their wealth, not only when they pass away, but while they're alive, because that can really impact on what we do for them in their estate planning.
Yeah, you raised some great issues there, and certainly what I find is a lot of times when people turn up, they kind of in some ways have preconceived ideas about what they'd like to achieve, but in many cases, by the time they've gone through and they've sought advice, a lot of times they might change their ideas in regard to what they can do. And one of the greatest issues I think that I talk about is the unknown unknowns. People don't know what they don't know. And for example, many times when you talk to people and say, we could introduce testamentary trusts as part of your estate planning process and whatever, and they go into a mental spin because they hear the word trust and think that's complicated, and they got to set it up right now and all those sorts of things, which isn't what happens. But a lot of times people also, I find a lot of time mums come in and they're very set on equality between the kids, and that everyone should end up with exactly the same thing. And I mean, the truth is that in many times the fair thing is to make sure there's fairness between the children, not equality. If you've got a couple of kids who've contributed a whole lot, have been working in the business and getting involved in helping run the business or buying assets or buying properties, whatever, to build the value of the business up, there's a difference in what you would provide for those kids as opposed to the kids that just wanted to go backpacking around Europe and spending all your money. So also, you've got to look at things like what provisions have you already made for some of your children. You might have already helped one with a house and so on. So it's not fair if your estate is equal, but you've given, little Johnny has got, $3 million from you already, and the other kids haven't got anything. So, they're the sorts of things I guess we try and encourage people to think about before they come along. But in most cases, a lot of the work we do is in regard to, farmers, graziers, and so on. It's kind of trying to work out, who's going to take over the farm, who's the right child to take over the farm. Doesn't mean it's always necessarily the eldest son, as used to be the way, but who, or the business, farm business, whatever, who's the right person to take over that asset, and how do you create fairness? So, sorry, I'm waffling.
Yeah. And often equality, if you're talking about farms here, equality can mean having to sell a farm, which means everyone sort of misses out because the thing that everyone's worked so hard for is gone.
Look, absolutely. And these days, especially with, look, I just have this saying, never equality, always fairness. Make sure you've provided for everyone in a way that's fair, because you don't want kids getting upset either, do you? You don't want someone who's worked their backside off for years and years, getting the same as everyone else when they're the ones that have contributed to half the value of the estate. So there's lots of things to think about, but certainly before you come in the door, it's really about who do you want to provide for, and in what sort of fashion? Because some people, sadly, they might have had a falling out with one of their children or whatever, and they come in and they say, we don't want Frida to get anything, and it's kind of like, well, you can't really do that, but maybe you can. Well, you can, but
you can.
You can, but I mean, is that really what you want? Yeah. And so on. So, I think the key takeout is to make sure that whatever you do, the kids still get together as mates at Christmas time, and your grandchildren still get on. You had a look at that video I did before about, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. But I mean, the main thing is, at the end of the day, you want to make sure your kids are mates, because your grandchildren will then all be mates as well. So all the cousins will still get on. And I mean, as a parent, that has to be the most important thing.
Yeah, I agree.
There you go. Sorry, I'm talking too much, Michelle.
No, it's fine. It's good.
Okay. What's your third thing?
What to bring to your first meeting.
Yep.
So it's really helpful if, aside from having all of these pre-meeting considerations, if they can bring with them just as much information they have about any structures they've got, so any companies, any trusts, anything like that, any superannuation information, just details about what sort of assets they have and any debt that's over those assets. We usually, in a lot of our matters, engage with their accountant and their financial planner to get a lot of that information they don't have. But it's really helpful to know what we're working with from the get-go, so we can talk in real terms and help them right from the start. Yeah,
it's interesting, Michelle. One of the things that I often suggest to clients is at least just turn up and know who to talk to. Make sure you know who we should talk to. You don't have to turn up with all the information. I mean, and sometimes that's one of the things that creates procrastination, is that some people like me wouldn't want to sit down and fill out 35 forms and search back through all their company documents and so on. And I mean, there's plenty of people like that. It's not just me, that would not want to go to all that trouble. But as long as you turn up to the meeting and you can tell us who we should talk to, I think that's half the battle, isn't it? So, as long as you know who your accountant and financial planner and so on, even that's a struggle for some people. But turn up and at least let us know who to talk to, so that we can then go away and get the information together for them. As I say, it's all part of that delegation thing. Turn up, make it easy for yourself. Turn up, tell us who to talk to, and we'll get all the information together and then make something practical from that.
Yeah. And I also find this is the point in time where people realize their name they've been using their whole life is not the same name they've got on their birth certificate. Not that you need to bring your birth certificate, but this is when people look through all of the documents and find these things out. And yeah,
You're having a go at my first. You're having a go at my first name again.
Oh, I don't know what you're talking about.
Yes, it's interesting, when you because these days, if you fly or do anything like that, don't you? Your tickets all have to be purchased in your first name, which my parents, God bless them, gave me and never used. So, but anyway, they're the sorts of things that are important. Absolutely. In fact, knowing what to bring, and some people can overthink it too, and be. A lot of times they go, what do we need to bring? And they turn up with folders full of all this stuff. And really, we don't need all that much information as long as we know who to talk to and generally what your structure is. I mean, I think the most important thing, and Michelle, what I've always said to clients is, I just want to know what's in your heart. It's Valentine's Day, I can say that. I just want to know what's in their heart. In other words, if something happens, what are the things that would make their hearts sing, knowing that had turned out after they're not here anymore? You can you can get so bogged down in what assets are, what liabilities are, what the valuations are, and all that sort of stuff. But I mean, at the end of the day, I think it's more important understanding what mum and dad's hearts are telling them. And what they really want to happen for those that are left behind. What do they love? What do they care about the most? What are the most important things emotionally that they want to happen?
Yeah.
There you go. That's just
Good
my
point. I agree.
So it's not just about the money, and it's not just about the assets and liabilities. It really is about the relationships. And I think, all of us in life should look a bit harder at that too, and work out how do we maintain the relationships, because when people are gone, you want those that are left behind, the beneficiaries and so on, being able to say, well, I really appreciate what mum and dad did. I'm really grateful for what they did. That was really nice of them that they thought about that. They know that little Johnny wants to go and learn how to be little Sally wants to be a ballet dancer over in New York. Hopefully not Johnny, but could be either. So, so the parents may have made provision for certain things like that as part of their estate planning as well. So when you're talking about what should they bring, if there's any things that emotionally or from a relationship point of view with their children that they think are really important, they're the sorts of things that they should turn up with.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. We're firing along. Number 4, what do you reckon?
4, some of the common and less common things we see. So a lot of people come in a little bit anxious and stressed about their particular circumstances and think they're going to be too complicated. This is, again, another reason to procrastinate. Oh, well, I've got a child with a disability, so that's going to be too hard to deal with, or I've got a child with substance abuse issues. So they sort of think, well, I can't even deal with that, and I can't put that on somebody else to deal with. But these things are becoming more and more common. We see blended families all the time. We see separations, people who aren't good with money or know that their children are not good with money. Yep. And it's just part of you, what makes you you, and nothing like that is too difficult to work through.
It comes back to the words we used before, which was it's what you don't know, you don't know. So people who turn up and they've got a child with special needs wouldn't know about special needs disability trusts, for example, that you guys can put in place for them. Kids with substance abuse wouldn't understand about testamentary trusts and putting appointors and trustees in that will make sure that child is looked after and isn't just going to blow all that money. It's probably a bad expression, blow all that money, cocaine. But that people aren't just going to waste. I'm a comedian today, I know. I don't even realise. But we want to make sure that people who turn up where kids maybe have substance abuses, there are ways where you can put that money in trust where it can be managed for a certain period of time. And a lot of times too, kids grow out of this sort of stuff. They finish university, they grow up, they stop doing drugs and drinking too much, and when that happens, then you can hand over control of a trust or the money to that child who's then in a better place. So there are lots of ways, aren't there, that you can solve these sorts of things. So, for example, you want to talk about special needs disability trusts and so on. I mean, that's something that you can do for people, isn't it?
Yeah, it is definitely. But on the special needs and disabilities, we also need to look at what sort of support that person is receiving for their disability. So a lot of them receive disability support, pensions, and sometimes NDIS funding. So that's another factor to consider, even with the distribution of your estate to them. They may not need, and it may actually be detrimental to them if they receive money from you. So that's something to consider. And then whether to put money into a special disability trust for them if they qualify. So it can be used for them to subsidise.
Yeah, because if they're getting a huge payout from the government already, giving them money may prejudice that. So you're absolutely right. One of the things you just wrote down here in your notes too was blended families, and that's just more and more common all the time, isn't it? Parents, the blended families, and so on. And there's just a whole lot of I'm reluctant to call it moral and ethical issues, but there really are in regard to if mum and dad in a previous relationship have had 3 kids and they've created a wealth of many millions or whatever, or a lot of money, and then mum, for example, with all this wealth, marries someone from little wealth who's got 4 kids. If mum dies, does she want her wealth that she and the original father of those children worked hard and long for to be divided by 7 instead of divided by 3? So I'm not saying what the right answer is. I'm just saying, and over time that may change too, as people are together in relationships longer, that sort of outcome may change. But you need to have those conversations with people, and people need to know that they can, you can quarantine certain assets for certain children, can't you? And make sure, I keep coming back to fairness, making sure there's fairness between what the original parents created for those 3 kids, as opposed to prejudicing those 3 kids because mum then married someone who didn't have wealth, and not there's anything wrong with that either. So they're conversations which I guess, Michelle, you're working with people in blended families, how many different sort of outcomes can you come up with? Thousands.
Yeah. I think that's the thing. There's no right or wrong answer. It's just you lay out all of the options and people will select what fits them best. A lot of people are prepared to just accept that they're in this relationship now, and potentially one will pass away before the other, where the other lives a much longer life and actually needs to use the joint wealth for the rest of their life. It might be depleted because of healthcare needs or other accommodation needs and things like that. So there is just so many options that will fit with what you want to achieve, and then something to be reviewed every couple of years.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, someone comes to mind straight away. Mother and father, different families, all the kids are still, there's kids everywhere, grandkids everywhere, and so on. And but also, why you review this is over a period of time. You might have been in a relationship for 15 years with, the first mother of these children and generated all this wealth. But it might be 20 years since you left that person and started a relationship with someone else. All of a sudden, the second family is now the family you've spent most of your life with. And, you need to adjust what you've done with your assets to that end as well. So there's certainly no hard and fast rules, but I think the greatest advantage in sitting down, Michelle, with people like yourself is being able to have the conversation, have someone from outside look in, because it's very hard when you're inside to come up with the right answer. You need, so I often say to my clients, I said, you're never going to solve your succession planning needs from within your family. You really need someone to come along from outside and talk to everyone individually who's never met them before, and that way you get an unbiased view of the world. Don't go and talk to the original accountant and solicitor who's known them for 20 years, because you'll be buying into the narrative of the loudest people in the family. So it's important they come along and talk to independent people like yourself to make sure on the right track. You've come up with some good issues here today, Michelle. Thank you. So we're now into number 5.
How long does it take to finalize your estate planning? Impossible.
I like your answer to this. Yeah. There's no answer to this question.
A piece of string. Yeah, it depends on so many things. But I guess the thing to be rest assured about is that it will be finalized to a point where you're comfortable, and then just again continue to review every couple of years. Just make sure it still works for you.
Why do you think some plans take longer than others to put into place?
I think because some people have not a few of the issues that we might have talked about, but all of the issues, as well as some people have a lot of their wealth tied up in things that are not necessarily in their own name. So their estate plan might be much more involved than just doing a straightforward will for them, for example. So those ones inevitably take longer than a standard will.
Yeah, look, absolutely. And, sometimes the clients hold up the process too, don't they? You're requiring information from them or feedback from them. So it's not always our fault.
Yeah, true.
No, that's fine. One of the comments, but certainly, there is no answer to how long does it take. I mean, if you want something done and it's simple and you need an interim will in place, you might be able to get it done overnight, but or by within a day's time. But to really do what we do with the due diligence and the distribution matrix and looking deeper into what people own and owe, and make sure you've got the ownerships right, and talking to the accountants and solicitors, sometimes they're the ones that are holding you up. So, but sometimes when people really need something done urgently, and I mean you're aware of this, is putting interim wills in place is something you can do very, very quickly, and 99 times out of 100, what you're doing is you're creating something that's going to be a lot better than what they've currently got in place, which is either nothing, out of date. You have the wrong beneficiaries and all those sorts of things. One of the other issues you raised, Michelle, was how do people understand the value that you create as part of helping with their estate and succession planning? And it's one of those things, isn't it? Because for some it'll be inexpensive to get this done. People who don't have complicated structures and so on, it'll be relatively inexpensive. People who've got very complicated structures and high levels of assets, it's going to be more complicated, take more, and there'll be a greater investment required by them to get it finished. But you raised this question about how do the clients, how do you help them understand the value that you've created along the way? Have you got an answer to that question, or?
I am learning the answer to that question as this day progresses. It is something I really, because I know the value of it, and I know people who have gone through it with somebody they love passing away. They often know the value of it, but for a lot of people, it's really difficult for them to understand the investment, as you say. So
Well, it is an investment, because I mean, at the end of the day, people have to invest money to get the result. And you've picked up a word which Tom uses because he stole it off me, and that's peace of mind. And one of the things that good estate planning does is it really does create peace of mind for families. So instead of people wondering and before they hop on their overseas trip and so on, wondering what's going to happen, you are making sure that people have peace of mind in regard to the outcome. But I mean, to me, it's always an investment, because it's probably going to cost just a tiny fraction of a % of your overall wealth to get this done, and you've then got peace of mind. Or if you don't do it and something goes wrong, I mean, other solicitors who love this sort of stuff rub their hands together if there's a contesting of a will or an estate or something like that. And it doesn't cost $10,000 or $50,000. It costs usually start at 250,000 upwards to go through a contested will. And that's regardless of what your asset base is. It can go from 250,000 into the millions to, just to contest a will. So you can invest, a small percentage now, or you can invest hundreds of thousands if you don't do it. But the point I've raised a number of times is, it's not about the money, whether you do it now. If you don't do it now, it's not about the hundreds of thousands of dollars that it's going to cost you in lawyers who'll be very grateful for you being so lazy and procrastinating. It's the grief that it causes between your grandchildren, the cousins, the nephews, nieces, and all that sort of stuff. Because what will happen is your children will argue and bicker and fight. They'll have a blue. They'll disconnect from other members of their family, and all of a sudden the grandkids are the ones that will fall apart. And I think for anyone watching this, the greatest regret you'd have if you passed away and you could look back and see what was happening behind you, would be that knowing that all those children and grandchildren that you loved and cared for so much, a little bit of prevention could have created a loving relationship between all of those, and you've ended up with something bad. So that's how I help people understand the value in something is you're creating harmony for the family, and your kids will all get together and your grandkids will still get together as mates. So
yeah,
it's been a great topic. Anything you want to finish off with today, Michelle?
No, I think that's covered everything I wanted to talk about.
Okay. Well, I got through all your points. So that's the main thing. So anyway, thanks again, Michelle, for your time today, and look forward to catching up with you in a fortnight. For those that are watching, we do these each fortnight, and we're always looking for questions you might have, and we're happy to answer those, talk about those, and so until next fortnight, look forward to catching up with you then. See you, Michelle.
Look forward to it. Bye.
Bye.